Hey everyone, hope you're having a good week. Just wanted to go over week two and dig into week three a little bit and talk about some of our quiz questions. So, last week, week two, we were talking about the general environment of healthcare, of the healthcare industry, starting to look at the importance of environment with relation to marketing, and then also looking a little bit at utilization of healthcare services and what drives people to use various different types of healthcare. So we had our discussion talking about your own personal healthcare choices. We had our written assignment, which was specific to slogans and which ones you liked, which ones you didn't. And then we had our quiz and our ed puzzle. So let's hop over to the quiz. I actually have some updates, I guess, to a couple of the questions. So I'll share that. So the first question, what is the term to describe activities that encourage such practices as safer driving, tobacco cessation, lifelong exercise, and other similar activities? So the correct answer in the classroom was health advocacy. The textbook speaks to health advocacy and how it is in support of these, that's pretty much what health advocacy is really, or, even health promotion, hence the reason you'll see that in bold there as well. In that the point of these activities is that advocating for better health or promoting health overall. However, the marketing tact that is taken to promote these things is social marketing. So it was just generally a poorly worded question. I apologize for that. So I have given credit there. I think I gave credit across the board. I don't think anyone answered functional. I think most people answered the ones that could potentially be correct here and all kind of had an equal chance. It was a typo in the third answer as well as in the first answer. So what you'll see now if you go into the classroom, I've actually fixed that already in the quiz so that I don't forget for the next time this is updated to teach the class next year. So you will see some different words, but this was the original wording that you saw in the classroom when you took the quiz. So I did give credit. You'll still see it as a red X if you got it wrong, but you'll see over to the right that you were given the points for that question. Same one here, and this is. I think people kind of dug into it a little bit, and plus it was, kind of poor wording on our part, so I apologize for that. So, which healthcare group would want to increase healthcare demand? So, the people in currently that benefit from an increase in healthcare demand would be providers because most providers are paid based on a fee-for-service basis. So, the more visits they do, then the more money they'll make in the long run. So they want demand to go up, and honestly, if demand goes up, they're going to grow their organization. They could potentially raise their prices depending on the situation. So the healthcare group that wants to increase healthcare demand are providers. The notion of medical group, again, that was a typographical error. It should have specifically been related to HMOs. So if you did choose medical groups, that is another group that would be interested in increased healthcare demand. So I did give you credit for that. What the groups that would not be interested in increased healthcare demand are insurances of any type. So insurance companies don't want people to use healthcare because then it costs the organization more. And at some point, if demand goes up, it's going to the amount being paid out is going to exceed the amount coming in premiums, and that sets up a bad business situation for insurance companies. So insurance payers, pharmaceutical benefit management companies, they do not want to see healthcare demand increase. So no credit was given for those, but the other two, I did give credit in both of those cases. Okay, so now on to the other questions that weren't messed up, and I do apologize for that. Geographical variations in health services utilization are due to variation in illness patterns, and this is generally false. Geographic variations in utilization can be due to a number of things, but they're typically due to things like access, number of providers, the socioeconomic status of the area. It's not necessarily that if you see an area where there are less visits, it but the same amount of population, it's not necessarily just because people aren't sick. It's typically because it's a lower socioeconomic status area, it's an area where people are uninsured, or it's an area where there are no providers, or there are less providers, and therefore you're going to see, if you're just looking at overall data, you're going to see lower amounts of health service utilization in those areas. But it's certainly not because those folks aren't sick on the same, on approximately the same statistical level as people in areas with higher utilization. It's just that they can't access services typically for one reason or another. So our answer there was false. Next one, what influences the likelihood that an individual will seek care? And the textbook talks about, and I have it open here so I can tell you exactly where it starts to discuss that. It begins to discuss it in the print version on page 88, but there are a multitude of personal characteristics, and they're listed here: age, gender, sex, race, income and socioeconomic status, education, availability of care, culture, and patient's beliefs. So those are the things that really influence the likelihood that a patient is going to seek care. It's not necessarily the type of service, cheapers, the type of service. I think the one that was chosen most frequently was reason-seeking care, and that's typically not the case. I mean, you certainly keep in mind when we're talking multiple choice questions, you're choosing the best answer and not necessarily answers only the ones that are correct. Some people may be influenced by the reason-seeking care. They would never go to the doctor for a minor sprain or strain or a minor respiratory infection or something like that, but if they were having a heart attack, they would go. There are certainly people out there like that, but the more dominant factor that drives the likelihood that someone will seek care are things like the availability of care. Is there some place for them to get care? Is there some place for them to get care that is, that is covered under their insurance? Is there, who are they, man or a woman? Women are much more likely to seek care for something than a man would. The age, obviously, children are influenced by their parents to seek care versus as we get older, we tend to not seek care as frequently as perhaps we should in some cases. The culture of the patient, are they from a culture where they try and heal themselves first through natural remedies or home remedies as opposed to going right to a physician? So there are lots of things, but they are all personal characteristics that fall into line as opposed to just why it is that they may need to be seeking care. That can be a reason, but it's not nearly as dominant as all of those different personal characteristics. And this kind of plays into this question as well. Who or what plays the central role in determining healthcare decisions for families? And the person that plays that central role is mom. The woman in the family generally is the decision maker with regard to healthcare. Amusingly enough, my husband, who's sitting right behind me right now, and I were just having a discussion about health insurance and signing up for a website and all of these things. So it's, in the U.S., it tends to be mom of the family that dominates this decision-making process for whatever reason. I'm not sure why that is the case, but women tend to make decisions for themselves, but also for their family members. And it probably, relates back to mom's role in, in mothering children, and that mom is traditionally the one responsible for, taking children for their pediatric visits, for their physicals, dealing with the baby when the baby is sick, those kinds of things. That's, I'm guessing, the historical background behind why women are kind of the dominant decision makers when it comes to healthcare. But there could be a whole cadre of other reasons as well. The answer that was chosen most frequently other than mom was insurance. And again, when we're looking at these answers, we're trying to choose the best answer. And the textbook's pretty clear about who makes decisions. Mom, or the women of the family. Not necessarily, you don't have to be a mom to make decisions, but when we're talking about a family, we're talking, typically mom or dad, and it's mom that makes those decisions. Insurance does play into the decision, and whomever is making the decision on behalf of the family will need to take into account their health insurance, what providers they can go to, who they can't go to, etc. But so insurance does have a hand in it, but when we're talking about what is the central role of decision making, it's usually the female of the family that drives those decisions. And we may see a shift in that. I'll hop back there for a second. We may see a shift. We're seeing a shift in families, which we have been probably over the last, we'll say 20 to 30 years, where most of the household duties tend to be more shared, as opposed to one person being responsible for all of the household and one person being responsible for working. We now see the norm now is for both parents to be working, and for household duties to be shared. So maybe we'll see more of a shared, going forward, when anthropologically they look back at this portion of decision making and overall for families, maybe when they rewrite this book in 30 years, it'll say, it's a shared decision making process. But just even for our family, we have a pretty shared. My husband is kindly the one that takes care of a lot of the stuff here around the house, but I tend to be the dominant decision maker when it comes to where we go for healthcare and those types of things. So I think mom still is going to play a big role in that moving forward, even with the shift in families that we've seen overall in our country. And again, keep in mind that we're talking about in the United States. If you go to other places, it may be very different, especially when you go to places where medicine is socialized. So maybe there isn't as much decision making around who to go to and where to go, because you just go where you go, and that's it. It'll look a lot more like it did here in the U.S. 40 years ago. This is very much a U.S. cultural phenomena and not necessarily applicable outside of the U.S. Okay, so week 3. This week we're going to look a little bit more at planning for marketing, planning for strategy overall. I'm going to look a little bit at the SWOT analysis, which I'm sure you guys have seen plenty of times before, as well as the 5 forces analysis, which can be another way to look at these same types of industry environmental issues. Tons of different readings this week. I always say, read your textbook. That's important. There's a lot of info in there. Scan through these other things. You're going to need the Maslow's hierarchy information for our discussion, but scan through them. And if you don't have time to read every word, and you're looking to cut back, especially this week, there's a lot in here. Make sure that you're taking some time with the textbook. That's really the root of a lot of our information in this class. We do have a kind of a how to get started on a marketing plan, which I think may be helpful to you for your final project as we go forward there. In our discussion this week, we're going to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So, and actually I'll just click to it quick. Probably most of you have seen Maslow's hierarchy in the past, but it's just the notion of, we don't need to watch this video, there we go. It's the notion of, the bottom of the pyramid are our basic needs, and then we move up to psychological needs, and then our self-fulfillment. And the notion is that you need to meet each level in order to get to the next level. I apologize for all these ads. It's nice to have this free stuff to look at in the classroom, but it usually comes with a ton of ads. So everything's going to build. So in other words, you're not going to have prestige and a feeling of accomplishment if you don't have food, water, and a place to live, a safe place to live. So that's everything builds on one another. So that's the notion of Maslow's hierarchy. So this week we're going to talk about the type of healthcare needs that can be related to the upper levels of Maslow's hierarchy. So we're talking about up here, belongingness, love, esteem, self-actualization, not the basic needs, because it's clear what would fit in here from a healthcare perspective. But there's also healthcare services that fit in these top elements as well, or healthcare items that fit into these top 3 elements as well. So take a look at that and let us know your thoughts. Also, we have a written assignment this week, a SWOT analysis. So if you currently work in healthcare, that's awesome. Do a SWOT analysis on where you work. If you don't work in healthcare, think about a place that you would like to work when you graduate. Or maybe some of you may have already been involved in some internship work, maybe where you did some internship. But focus it in the healthcare industry and just do a SWOT analysis on their strengths, weaknesses. Remember, strengths and weaknesses are related to the internal environment. If you don't currently work there or haven't interned there, you might not have a lot of insight. So you might want to choose a place where you've been a patient, so at least you have some internal insight. And then the opportunities and threats are related to the external environment. So the types of impacts that, say, like a UPMC external environment would be, their competitors. So things like AHN or St. Clair. It would be things like government, all of the different types of stakeholders that have an impact, external stakeholders that have an impact on the organization. So strengths and weaknesses, internal, opportunities and threats, external, and focus on that for our week 3 assignment. Also, you're going to submit your topic for your final project. So I'm just looking for a couple of sentences about what you're planning to do for your final project. You're going to create a marketing plan. So that's where this how to create a marketing plan can be helpful. And there's also some information up here. Again, this is really more to guide your thoughts on that, not the kinds of things that you need to really dig into at this point. But those articles may be helpful for you to go back and reference when you're developing your plan. But so for now, we're looking for a marketing plan. Could be for an entire organization. It could just be for a specific unit. So maybe you want to talk about, specifically the women's and children's unit at blah, blah hospital, or a new clinic that you're opening, that's part of a larger organization or something like that. Or it could even just be for a specific service. Maybe you want to market mammography services or screening services or whatever it happens to be. So whatever is interesting to you, you're going to just give me some basic information about your topic, and then I'll give you some feedback. And then the assignment itself will be due in week 7. I used to have an assignment related in week 5. I don't remember if I still do, so let me look. Yeah, that's the week 5 assignment related to it is gone. But so week 7 is where you'll see the final project, your strategic marketing plan. So just be aware of that important part of this week's assignments. And then we have our quiz and our Edpuzzle. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, you'll see grades going up this week, and I'll also see you in the classroom. Thanks so much.